I've just returned from the trip of a lifetime. My first time fishing in Ireland, and it's been an absolute treat, folks. I took a little camera with me. I managed to film most of the trip. I thought I'd make a little vlog about it and just give you guys an insight into what the fishing over there is like. Now, there's two intentions in making this video. The first one is just to give you those highlights, a sense of the mood over there, a sense of the crack. It was absolutely brilliant, and hopefully a few tips along the way. And the second is, I've no doubt that a lot of people watching this video will have been to Ireland, will have fished in Ireland, and hopefully you guys will be able to comment below with some tips for anglers thinking of going for the first time. I'll be glad to read those and maybe pick up some extra tips too. So it's just about sharing experiences, sharing memories of an Irish adventure, and hopefully you guys can get in the comments and give me some of your own feedback as well. So I went with my good friend Rory Jones and another friend of ours called Dan, another really good angler. Now Rory is a bit of an Irish expert. I think he's won 6 festivals at Inniscarra, the place where we went for this particular trip, and he was invaluable in giving me the information I needed, tactics, rigs, everything. So I literally can't thank him enough. He's put me right so many times on natural venues, the River Wye for one when I first went down there, and now Ireland as well. So a lot of what I'm telling you that I've done through the week was inspired by Rory. And also another guy, Cathal Hughes, he needs no introduction in Ireland, Irish international, fantastic angler, gave me some brilliant info before I went, so thanks guys. So where did we go? We went to Inniscarra, which is right, I'd say, in the middle of South East Ireland. It's sort of about 2.5 hours from Rosslare, where the ferry comes in, probably about half an hour, 40 minutes from the city of Cork, which is Ireland's, I think, second biggest city, so not far from there. To get there, from me in the north of England, it was a bit of a trek. I sort of had to drive down to Rory's in Hereford. We then drove to Pembroke, picked up the ferry to Rosslare, and it was another sort of 2.5 hours either side. So I'd say a full day's driving, but it was really, really worth it once I got there. I did catch up with the guys on the way there just to see what they were expecting. So here's a little intro that I filmed with Rory and Dan. Right folks, Ireland 2024. It's your first ever visit, isn't it?
First time, yeah, first time. Looking forward to it, very excited.
It's my first ever time fishing over in Ireland. I've filmed over there a few times. But you've won loads in Ireland. Multiple festival winner.
A few, but I'm not going to blow my own trumpet until we get to the end of this trip.
Well, it's going to be very interesting. 10 days we're going for. We've got 2 festivals and an open match. What are you looking forward to the most, Dan? Is it the Guinness, the fishing?
I think I've got to start with the Guinness, haven't I? It'd be wrong not to.
Do what you're good at. Do what you're good at.
Yeah, do what I'm good at. And yeah, no, very much looking forward to tucking into quite a few roach and skimmers and hopefully a couple of big bream as well.
I mean, Rory has looked after us both here. He's told us all the tackle we need, all the bait we need. So I think we can both agree if it's not, you know, a top 3 finish, probably Rory's fault, isn't it?
I think it has to be. Yeah, I know, I definitely think it has to be.
Yeah, blame it all on me.
But first of all, I can turn the camera around. We've got the ferry to get on. We've got to get over there. It could be a rough crossing. We'll keep you updated, folks, on how we get on. Bit of a rough crossing, but you've tucked him in, haven't you, Dan?
Tucked him in.
In the Fuka colours.
In the Fuka colours, shining bright. Bless him, he's only had not even a full pint, and yeah, it's already hit him, I should say.
It is a bit rough out there.
But we look after our own, don't we?
We do. There's no iron team, is there?
No. So we will carry on though, won't we? We've got to finish the job.
I think we should.
It'd be wrong if we didn't.
So when we arrived, it was quite late at night, and we did have time for 3 Guinness, which I must say, the rumours are true, folks. Irish Guinness is so much better than the stuff you get in the UK or anywhere else in the world from what I've experienced. An absolute treat. So a few of them were very well received when we finally arrived at O'Callaghan's guest house. Now I'm going to tell you more about that later because the facilities for anglers are absolutely spot on. It was perfect. But I'm sure you want to hear about the fishing. And the next day we had a good breakfast, then hit the banks fairly early to find out what it was all about. And we sat on a section which I later found is known as Turtle Bay. So called because when they were actually pegging the area, I believe, they found like a big sort of turtle shell or big fossilised turtle or some sort of turtle fossil in there, and that's why they called it Turtle Bay. But very interesting part of the lake, and I soon found out that Inniscarra is a very, very deep lake, and how you fish it totally depends on the water level, i.e. on some pegs you can get into a top 5 of water by going just, 5 metres from the bank. On other pegs you have to go a lot further to reach that depth. And fishing in the correct depth is absolutely crucial to catching the bigger hybrids that you're trying to catch to build a big weight. So we had a good fish on the first day. On screen now you'll see Dan just reeling one in. Now Dan, like me, was an island virgin, and a look on his face when he first hooked into one of them big powerful hybrids was a treat, but he caught a load of fish. Some big hybrids, some big bream, he absolutely loved it. So I spent a bit of time filming Dan, and then I went down to see how Rory was getting on, and this is a little video of him just latching into a bit of a surprise on the pole. So one of the things I really liked about the format of this trip was there was an open match on the Saturday, which allowed anglers like me who'd never been before to get their eye in before the main festival started, and it was invaluable for me really. I mentioned the depth of water and how important it was. I fished in the wrong depth this day. I had a really busy day, caught around about 120, 130 roach for 10 kilos. That wasn't any good in the section, or in the match for that matter. Rory took the match clean out, 23 kilos. He was on a much better peg than me, I must get that in. But what a performance. He caught all his fish on a top 6, some whopping great hybrids, won the match, and it was a great start to the week for him, and proved really the effectiveness of the method that he put us onto. So then it was a few more Guinness in the bar, some lovely food cooked by Eileen at O'Callaghan's, and into the first festival. So day one, and one of the perils of travelling in a van with 3 people is occasionally one of you forgets something, and this is what happened on the first day. I just got set up on my section at Turtle Bay, and poor Dan rang me, and he'd actually left his glasses in the van, so I had a bit of a nightmare start in that obviously I didn't want to leave Dan without his glasses. I ran him to the gate of the greenway where we were fishing, and by the time I got back we were sort of 10 minutes into the match, so I didn't have too much time to set up. I had managed to luckily set the rigs up and get the bait pretty much prepped before I took Dan his glasses, but it was just, I lost probably 10 or 15 minutes of the first hour. But luckily I was on a brilliant peg, and I had, I'm going to say, one of the best days fishing I've ever had. Catching roach and hybrids at 7 metres in a really strong wind, I managed to weigh 16 kilos, which was enough to actually win the whole match on the first day, so a dream start. I apologise, there's no actual footage of that first day, mainly because I was in such a rush to get back after taking down those glasses, but every other day there is some GoPro footage, so you'll see some cutaways of exactly what I'm talking about. But the key was being dead positive and aggressive in around about 16 foot of water, and again I caught some lovely stamped roach and hybrids. Day 2 I was off to a different section called the Garden Centre. Now this is a short distance away from the Greenway and Coachford, and it's so called because, as you might guess, there is a garden centre there. It's a slightly shallower stretch on the pegs that we fished anyway than the main Greenway where we spent 2 out of the 3 days of the festival. But the fishing on the first day had been a little bit patchy there. In fact, Rory had only had about 1 kilo from there. I think the section had been won with about 4 kilos, so very, very low weights on that section. But speaking to people who know the venue, that's not uncommon when a section hasn't seen any bait. So they expected, as the week went on, the section would improve, and so it proved. So I started the day on a pole around about 11 metres out, balled in some ground bait and fished on a pole there. Caught really, really well for the first hour. Really nice stamp fish as well. Definitely bigger stamp roach than on the Greenway. And as you can see from the footage, I'm having to net some of these fish. Being fairly aggressive, feeding ball of ground bait, most chucks in, and just fishing, I think it was a 2 gram Sensus Alberto. I'll run through the rigs we used in a little while in this video, but fishing quite a light rig for that stretch. Being quite patient at times, having to wait because they were better quality fish. When I got one, they were well worth catching. And the first hour, 90 minutes were brilliant. I thought I was on for a proper weight. And then the fish just seemed to shut down and back off. Now, I was next to a man who actually drew next to twice through the course of the week. Brilliant angler called Henk from the Netherlands, and he was fishing a feeder, and to be honest, he was catching much more consistently than me on this feeder. I had a go at it, caught a few, didn't feel I had it quite right, and so I knew to do any real damage I would have to catch on that pole line. Luckily, last hour of the match, they returned and I had a brilliant finish, really, really strong. And I actually finished with 9.5 kilos, which was enough, sorry, 8.5 kilos it was, which was enough to win my section and come second in the rotation. So a really good day for me. I did slip down from memory the leaderboard slightly because Neil Richards, again, he was in a different rotation. He had a big weight again on day 2. So I think I was laying in around about 4th place or 5th place going into day 3, the final day of that first festival. Now day 3 put me on a section called the Cables, which was slightly further down the Greenway from Turtle Bay where you saw us on the first day. Again, just an absolute dream of a day's fishing. Fishing 11 metres out to get that sort of 16 foot of water that I was looking for. But I had to fish some bigger floats that day. The wind and the tow were absolutely horrendous. So I actually used rigs up to 6 gram that day. Again, I'll cover those shortly. But I was just trying to achieve that static presentation that Rory said was so important for catching the bigger hybrids. And we did manage to catch quite a few of them on the second day. Again, being positive with the bait, casters, hemp, worms, ground bait, potting bait, throwing bait. So you got that mixture of extreme accuracy, but also the noise of balls entering the water. And I managed 13 kilos, which was, you know, another lovely day. And I'm just trying to remember where I ended up. I put the results on screen. Now, I can't remember whether I was first or second in the rotation. I like to think I actually won the rotation that day. But unfortunately, it wasn't quite enough to win the festival. Neil Richards caught 11 kilos from the MPEG at the garden centre, which meant the difference, although I caught him up a bit, the difference between us was around about 700 grams. So I ended up second in the festival. I was a bit disappointed, folks, not to win it, to be honest. You don't get many chances to win festivals, I've always found that. And I think if I'd had more experience in Ireland, I would have actually won that festival by quite some margin. I think the draws were good enough to do it. But for my first Irish festival, wow, like I was just absolutely awestruck by the quality of the fishing. It was superb. So what I'm going to do now, before I run through the second festival of the week, I'm going to just talk through some of the rigs, the setup that I used, just to give you some insight into the tackle that you might need if you're thinking of going over. And as I said, folks, with this, please get involved in the comments, because I'm no expert on this. I've taken some advice off 2 brilliant anglers. I've found a system that I think works for me. Please get in the comments if you think you can make any suggestions or, you know, ideas that will help other anglers, because I want this video really to help and encourage other anglers to get over to Ireland. One thing you need to have exactly right in Ireland is your tackle setup. You need it to be weatherproof, you need to be prepared for sudden and fast changes in the weather. Systems seem to roll in off the Atlantic, so the 1 minute it can be flat, calm and sunny, and the next it's chucking it down with rain and really, really windy. So let me talk you through what I have found to be the best way of weatherproofing my sort of setup. First of all, I've got the Ocvox D36 system here, and as you can see, it's all set up with the outrigger. This means you can sit out in the water. A lot of anglers use a platform, which is fine as well. This is my choice. It's just a bit lighter and a bit more manoeuvrable. So I put this in the water here. Once you've got to roughly where you want to fish, it's just a case of leveling the legs off. There's actually 2 handy spirit levels, one on the side of the box, one on the front of the box. So when you level, you know about it and you're ready to go. So I'll just get it level and then I'll show you the attachments I use and why. So the setup, or the platform, the rig, whatever you want to call it, is essentially complete. And the beauty of this, as you can see now, we've got lots of points from which we can mount different things, from the pole roost, side tray, obviously my pole sock, keep net. It can all be mounted off all this. 2 things just to keep in mind, folks, if you've not used one of these systems before, or any other system for that matter. Try to keep any sort of protrusions coming out of the water to no more than about 1 foot, because Anything higher than that, you see people sometimes with platform legs or different things stuck right up, and you think that's only going to get in the way when you're moving your pole around or playing fish. So you can see the highest thing stuck out, it's probably only stuck out about 12 inches. On to what I actually put on it. Now I did have a couple of things let me down in Ireland. I'm not here to slag anybody off or any companies off, but everything you've seen here has stood up to 10 days in quite extreme weather conditions over there, so I can vouch for all this. Preston roost on a, sorry, Colmick should I say, Colmick. I think it's a 10 seat roost on one of the Preston ripple bars, and that just fits onto one of the Preston attachments there on the side, and my top 5s go on there. Preston do this freestanding roost which marries up perfectly with that. As you can see, this has had some real hammer over the years, different places, still serving me well. So I tend to put it about 8 foot away from the first roost, which shoots the top 5 on my pole, and then it's just about making sure it's a similar amount out the water. You want to make sure it is out the water, because you don't want it, the end of your top 5 dipping in and filling with water. That just causes you some problems as you're fishing. So nearly there with that. So like that side, this side needs a bit of depth adding. And again, extendable legs make it dead quick and easy to set up, so get it about level. Perfect. Next up, we've got the side tray. Now this, one of my favourite purchases over the last couple of years, a Feederland big side tray, absolutely superb this. And for Ireland it's fitted with this rain cover or hood or whatever it's called. Shake the old attachments down so they're in about the right place with the legs. I always have my side tray slightly forward, just it makes it easier to grab your bait off your side tray by doing that, and that just fits on to these 2 legs. And then to make sure she's roughly level, and tighten her up. 1, 2, and that is absolutely solid as a rock, and you'll see why that's so important in a little while. So that's the side tray on there. Off the back of the box I do have this side tray as well, but be a little bit careful with this, and the reason is the waves in Ireland do pick up sometimes when it blows, and obviously this one's set fairly low. So what I sometimes put on here is a bucket of ground bait or a tub with something in, something heavy. On a flat calm day obviously you can get away with more on it, but just that little bit lower. I wouldn't want it much higher though, because then it'd get in the way of my pole or landing net, so it's just useful to have there to store heavy items that aren't going to get washed off if the waves get up. Final 2, the pole sock. This goes off the foot plate leg here. I've done ever since young Rob Swan actually moved it. We were commercial fishing and young Rob Swan moved it from where I used to have it on the actual front leg of the box to the front foot plate leg, and I just find it better for everything like that now. And the good thing with this, obviously you'll see in a bit, we've got this gripper facility here where the pole can sit either in here or in either of the 2 socks at the side. And finally, oh no, there's 2 more things actually. Keep net next. That just goes off side here. I've actually just forgotten to bring the attachment with me, but never mind, that goes off like that. And then like that for now. You can also mount it off an attachment if you want. As you say, as long as it's nice and high at the front of you, so if you've got any roach, you're knocking them, if they wriggle in your hand, you've got a bigger target to aim for if they try and do the great escape. And to be honest, this was one thing I couldn't have been without in Ireland. It was an absolute godsend. Just a great big nitro, sealable, I think it's called the ground bait and riddle EVA container. Now in here I put all my ground bait, and this sat here on the side tray. On the first day I had some loose tubs and buckets on the first open match, and I quickly found that wasn't the way. As soon as the rain comes in, you're in a mad sort of struggle to cover everything up and keep it dry. With this, obviously all you do, zip it up, and all your bulk ground bait for the day is not only right next to you, so you don't have to get off your platform to fetch it and cause any disturbance, but also you can seal it up dead easily. And the height of this doesn't interfere with the Feederland hood as well, so you can still bring this up, So we bought a couple of pets back from Ireland with us, folks. Look at them 2. Absolute beauties. You can see that don't interfere with that hood at all. One thing I very stupidly left in the garage at home was this. This would have been a real treat to have with me. Lots of companies do them, but it's just a worm box. We ended up just cable tying our worm bags, and as you've just seen on the side tray hood there, that meant we had a few escapees in the van, which Rory wasn't best pleased about, but these are brilliant. Keep all your worms nice and secure as well, so this will be coming with me next time. But that's my island setup. It seemed to work pretty well through the week. Yeah, and I can vouch for any of this kit to anybody. So I've shown you my setup, and before I move on to rigs and elastics, I want to just touch on a couple of other little bits and bobs that have really helped me on my Irish journey. The first, and I've had these in the bag for ages and not used them, it's the Daiwa Mini Power Effects extensions. Now, these are double-ended, for want of a better phrase. So I've got two. One goes in the 5 or the 6, and this one here goes in the 7 or the 8. And what they do, when you're doing that sort of short pole fishing, when you're really anchoring in with big floats and maybe burying the tip of your pole under the water to get that perfect stability, they just offer a bit of protection to your 6 and 7 or 8 section. So when you strike, you can imagine the pressure of the strike is actually on the half butt and not on the section proper. So I think these have been brilliant. They're also useful, by the way, if you wanted to just nip in and out to, you know, maybe past your bait, near side of your bait. I didn't do too much of that in Ireland, but I did think it'd be very, very useful for that as well. So I took both these with me, and these were absolutely invaluable. The other thing, and again, this is something I've carried around with me for months and months, to the point where I felt like chucking it in the garage and not taking it anymore, but I thought, no, there'll be an application when this is worth its weight in gold, and that's the great big stonking rocking roller, the 6-leg one that Daiwa make. Now this is a right piece of kit, massive, and to be honest, I've found it too big for the majority of commercial fishing applications. I've been using the Matrix rollers that I've had for years with the double leg extenders, and they're brilliant. But out there where you've got that extra wind, where you're wanting that big sort of surface so you can ship back quick, especially if you're not that dexterous like me and you want a big roller to aim for, these have been worth the weight in gold. So absolutely over the moon with how well that worked for me in Ireland. I'll definitely be taking them next year when I go. So on to the rig, and this one is dead easy. Again, I'm not taking any credit for this. Rory told me about this before I went. I put it on, and although I tinkered with the shot in a bit, largely unsuccessfully, I'm going to say, this is basically the setup I used all the time I was there. It's Rory Jones, the man I've got to thank for this. So I'm going to start off with the elastic at the top end. Now, this is actually just the number 1 and 2 of my pole, and you can see there, that's all that's elasticated. So we've probably got in total around about 3.5 foot of elastic through the pole. I have left the number 1 section in. This sort of first 5 inches you can see here is the number 1 section of the pole, and I like that because it helps that elastic just to lock up when you're swinging fish. Elastic itself is the Preston Innovations black number 8, so we've got that through just 2 sections of pole. I found that absolutely perfect through the week. That's one thing actually that Rory does a bit different. He has actual proper hollow elastic in there. For me, I like a black 8, and through 2 sections that was perfect. Now, if you've seen any videos with Rory on the River Wye or anywhere else for that matter, you'll have seen these floats before. The Census Albertos, these are an absolute winner for this style of fishing. It's a very long float, as you can see. The line actually goes through the body, so there's no danger of it exploding when you're sacking up on big weights of fish. More importantly, I think that long profile of the float really does work well when you're sort of lowering a rig in deepish water or flicking your Olivet out and then putting your rig on top of it. Now, the other real good quality of these, they very, very rarely tangle, almost never tangle, so absolutely perfect for the job in hand. Moving down to the business end, I'm going to call it. Very complicated shotting pattern, folks, very elaborate. We've got a simple Olivet with a bulk of trimmers just below it. This is a 3 gram float, but we'd scaled the same sort of system down to a 2 gram or up to a 4 gram as well. And below it, a simple double bulk there. I think there's 3 number 8s there. That's normally what I was using for my second part of my bulk. One thing that I did think was important though was an 8-inch hook length. Absolutely love that. Meant I could lay a bit of line on the bottom, and when you're fishing on quite a severe slope, as you are at times at Inniscarra, it just allows you to be sure that your bait's resting on the bottom. Just going to run very briefly through the hook lengths and hooks. Now, I've probably been guilty of being a little bit, how can I put it, faffy here, because I took hook length to 013 or 012.8 fluorocarbon. Rory told me to take them to 014. I thought, no, that's a bit much, but next year I will take them to 014. I did have some to 014, but mainly I took them to the 012.8, the Suplex fluorocarbon. 8 inches long, and the hooks, Drennan Pole Specials. Now, this is a size 16 on here. I took them in a 14 and a 16. I also took a Tubertini pattern. I'm not going to talk too much about them because I didn't feel them to be as good as these Pole Specials. I'm going to say a Guru Pole Special in a size 14 was the hook at Inniscarra. Absolutely brilliant. And that in a nutshell is rigs and elastics covered. I've showed you the box setup, the importance of weatherproofing everything. There's not a lot else really to talk about. Now, bait choice, very subjective. I'm not going to go too much into that really. I don't think there's much point, as everyone's got mixes that they're confident in, and some brilliant Irish anglers use stuff that's totally different to what me and Rory used. So yeah, I'm going to skim over bait, but basically you want something sticky, you want something heavy, and you want something with a lot of feed in it. Let me tell you now about the second festival. Now, you'll not believe this, folks, but I thought it was remarkable and testament to the level of support that angling gets in Coachford at Inniscarra. The festival was actually sponsored to the tune of €500 by the supermarket next door to O'Callaghan's, where the draw takes place. Centra, it's called. What a brilliant gesture. And when you look at the festival calendar through the year that the organisers, Trevor and Debbie Platt, put online, you'll see a lot of the festivals excuse me, are actually sponsored by local businesses, which is tremendous. So big thank you to them for putting money into the payout on this one. Day one on this festival, and I was actually back at the Cables where I spent the first festival, the last day of the first festival, should I say. I drew what I think was probably not quite as good a peg as I've been on the day before, but it still afforded me some deep water, although I had to go quite a long way to get it. I was actually fishing 13 metres of pole with a dolly butt to get into that deeper water, which meant potting a lot more bait rather than throwing, because I'm not even that accurate at 6 metres, never mind 13, so I had to bring the cupping kit into play a lot more. But going that extra distance to get that depth did pay off for me. I had a mint day, caught some hybrids again as well as roach, to end with 13 kilos, which was enough to win the zone, win the rotation again. Brilliant start to the festival, really happy with that. I seem to think Nigel Franks led after day one. He had a great weight from Turtle Bay, big 15 kilo weight, but I was in the running, I was in the top 5 after day one, which was you know, where I wanted to be. Day two, and it was off to Turtle Bay. Now, this section again had been the best on the first day, so I was happy about that. With weights improving at the garden centre, I also thought maybe our rotation would be a really favourable one to actually win the festival, so I was quite optimistic. I wasn't too happy though with my draw at Turtle Bay, folks. As I said, some of that section you can actually get into a top 5 of water without going too far. The peg that I drew the first week when I won the match, you can get it on a top 6 of pole. This week I actually had to fish 14.5 metres of pole to get into that correct depth that I wanted to catch the hybrids. Wonderful days fishing. Next to no hybrids, there are only about half a dozen through the day. A lot of roach. I had a roach every put in. I'm going to guess about 160 fish, and they went just over 11 kilos, but I actually weighed 10 kilo 900, and I want to just tell you why, because there's a very good, I think, rule in place in Ireland, and it's to stop people abusing fish, and that is the dead fish rule. So basically, after the match, you tip your fish back. Any fish that have floated on the surface that have died are then weighed, and that weight's then knocked off your weight. So I did actually kill a couple of fish that day. I killed a couple on other occasions through the day, just I think because of the numbers of fish we were catching, and obviously the shock of bringing them up from deep water. So obviously I never like killing fish. I was a bit gutted, but I definitely think it puts fish welfare as a priority. So a great rule, I think. So I was a bit gutted to lose the weight, but I think it's a good rule. Ended up with 10 kilo 900. That put me second, frustratingly, in the section. Oh no, sorry, third in the section actually. Could I have done much more from that peg? Probably, but I've had to fish a very different match, a feeder match, I think. And I hadn't been doing that. I didn't feel confident to do it. So, yeah, I definitely think that's one area I want to work on for next year, the feeder fishing, to try and get that a bit more taped. So a day that's definitely probably cost me a couple of kilos of fish, not a great draw, 10 kilos, and going into the final day of the festival still in contention. Now, Rory, on this same day when I was at on the Turtle Bay, Rory had actually drawn the MPEG on the cables, and all these festivals worked out on weight. Rory did what he does. He took the match, and I'm going to say the festival, clean out in that one day with a massive 21 kilo weight of hybrids. So absolute dominance from him. He do a good peg, he do an MPEG, but boy did he make it count. So that pretty much sealed the deal for Rory in the festival as a whole. Superb performance from him. Day 3, and my drawing arm actually came up trumps once again for me, folks. I drew an end peg, and I'm going to say the best end peg at the garden centre. I think it was peg 38. But just look what greeted me when I got there. Day 3, and I'm at the garden centre. We've got a bit of a fan club. You want a rig, pal? Oh, so we've got to get through them down there, but they're very friendly from what I can see. So, yes, you are, pal, aren't you? Good old boy. Joining me for day 3, we have a selected audience. Look at these absolutely beautiful animals, to be fair. Come on, pal, I'm going to get my stuff. Let me get my stuff. You're beautiful. Oh dear, oh dear. Look at these. Oh, you lovely. Good girl. Look at these. Beautiful animals. Oh, no. No, no, no. So, a few bovines to contend with on arrival, but after I wiped the cow pat off my shoe, I did settle into the most wonderful day and a perfect end to one of my most memorable fishing trips ever. A roach, I'm going to say every single pull in actually, fishing about 8 metres from the bank, it's the top 7 pole with that dolly butt, feeding regular balls. The fish weren't easy to catch, the water was gin clear and the weather was very, very bright, but the fish were there all day. And by sort of tweaking the feeding, keeping some bait falling through, one thing I think was really important was fishing a static bait, you know, making sure I was holding that bait dead still. Even despite those sort of clear conditions, when all the instincts in me were saying the fish will want this bait on the drop, it seemed to be better to just literally anchor a bait on the bottom and wait for a proper bite off a good stamped fish. Maggots were best on the hook. Wonderful day. Round about 150 roach, which weighed 11 kilos, which was enough to win the garden centre rotation, and the total weight left me 5th place in the festival, so another lovely envelope and a good pickup. Reasonably happy with my second week performance, but the more I got to know about Inniscarra, the more I was sort of ruined that first week. I think with a more experienced angler on my peg, or with me doing things a bit different, a win would have been possible off those first week draws, but that's hindsight, you know. It was the most wonderful week. The food, incredible. In Eileen's, that's, you know, O'Callaghan's at Coachford. Food laid on every night. Lovely Guinness. We did go out a couple of nights. We had a run into a local village called Macroom. Had a steak in a place called Granville's. Oh, absolutely to die for. We went to another local restaurant called May Fitz. Had some wonderful food in there. It's about so much more than the fishing, you know. Fishing was amazing, but brilliant company all week with Rory and Dan and all the other lads on the festival. Everyone was so helpful. It was just a pleasure to be there, and I really can't wait to get back for next year. So on screen now, folks, I'm going to put contact details for O'Callaghan's. If you're thinking of going over to Inniscarra, please pay them a visit. I'm also going to put some details on there for Trev Platt, who runs the festivals. Anybody interested in booking on should get in touch with him. And there's a couple of Facebook pages as well, which I'm flashing on screen now, which you should know about if you're wanting to get involved. So the Inniscarra Lake Facebook page, get in touch there. You can also see all results, by the way, from the festivals at Inniscarra, and there's plenty spread out through the year, so lots to get involved with. I haven't mentioned yet, and I want you to just have a quick look, by the way. Look at this little tackle shop, which is also in the car park at Coachford, right outside where you stay. So look at this. So one of the best things about where we're staying in Coachford at O'Callaghan's is you've literally got where you park the vans here. We're always having a little mix up. Fantastic having your own ground bait assistant. He's been a wonderful, wonderful human all week, haven't you, Paul?
I don't know about that. Somebody's going to do it.
Whisk in hand. Coffee, yeah. So you can literally... We're actually sleeping in them rooms there, up there. There's a bait fridge area there, where you keep all your maggots and casters. And then, I just want to show you this little area here. Because you go around here, and there is, I'm going to say, one of the cutest little tackle shops you'll ever see. This is Trev's Tackle, so... Morning, Debbie.
How are you, Tom?
I'm very good. Debbie runs all the festivals really well with the help of Trev. I'm going to say you're in charge. I'm going to say...
I think so.
Yeah, I think so. And this is Trev's Tackle. Look at this. Everything you could want for a visit to Ireland. Feeders, shot, proper shot as well, lead shot. Look at that. You name it. It's in here. So there you are, folks, an absolute trip of a lifetime. As I said at the start, the whole idea of this video is showing how easy it is to go to Ireland and enjoy the brilliant fishing on offer. Get your setup right, the rigs are very simple, the hospitality is basically laid on a plate for you, it's absolutely stunning, and the fishing is out of this world. So please, any questions, drop them in the comments, or indeed, if you've got any tips you want to share with other anglers travelling to Ireland, get them in the comments as well. I was blown away by it and I can't wait to get back next year for another go.